Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise and give you those vital strategic insights from some really complex global analyses.
And today we are tackling something pretty unique. It's an international market entry strategy for a celebrated Indian luxury textile, the Paithani saree.
Right. And this isn't just about, pretty textiles. It's a masterclass in international business segmentation.
It really is. We're looking at an analysis that pits two vastly different global economies against each other. We've got Canada and the United Arab Emirates.
Two potential launch pads for a very specific heritage-driven product.
Exactly.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to evaluate the market attractiveness, the deep cultural dynamics at play.
And of course, the actual strategic recommendations you'd need to launch these heirloom series successfully in both of those places.
We want to give you that shortcut to understanding how centuries-old craftsmanship has to adapt to modern global commerce.
Okay, so to set the stage, we really have to get what this product is, a Paithani saree is. It's so much more than just silk. It's a hand-woven textile with a GI tag.
A geographical indication. That term is so crucial for any luxury item. But what does it really guarantee a buyer, say, in Toronto or Dubai?
It guarantees authenticity, provenance. Its origin is certified, like strictly to Paithani, in Maharashtra.
So this isn't just some generic Indian silk.
Not at all. It is verifiable heritage. The sarees are famous for their signature art, the peacock and lotus motifs, the heavy metallic zari borders.
During the time it takes to make one.
Oh, the time. And in the global context, that certification is your number one defense against cheap knockoffs. It immediately lifts Paithani into that really sought-after niche of slow fashion and verifiable luxury.
So it's not just a beautiful garment, it's an entire supply chain rooted in rural livelihoods. We're talking about sustaining skills for weavers, dyers, craftsmen, where no two pieces are ever identical.
It's art with a guaranteed origin story. And that is precisely why the choice of Canada and the UAE is so strategic. They represent two fundamentally opposing ways of thinking about consumption.
Okay, let's break that down. Why those two countries specifically?
Well, think of Canada as the platform for ethical long-term brand building. It's a stable, high-income G7 economy.
And the consumers there, they value things like ethical sourcing, sustainability.
Transparency, absolutely. And crucially, Canada has a huge South Asian diaspora. We're talking over 2 million people. That's a natural built-in customer base right from the start.
And the UAE then is the other side of that coin. It's the high-margin, high-speed alternative.
Precisely. The UAE is an established luxury hub. It's all about high-margin retail, rapid wealth. Plus, their Indian expatriate base is massive, over 3.5 million people.
So you have immediate, deep cultural resonance there.
You do. But the biggest factor, the real differentiator, is the policy environment. Their entry is heavily favored by that 2022 India-UAE trade agreement, the CP.
So we have the slow, ethical play in Canada versus the high-visibility, high-margin, policy-backed play in the UAE. Let's get into the numbers.
Right, the cold, hard numbers. When we look at the macroeconomics, the scale difference is immediate. Canada is a much bigger economy, a GDP of about $2.1 trillion US.
But it's a mature market, so growth is slower, right?
Right. The forecast is pretty modest, maybe 1.8%. The UAE, on the other hand, it's a smaller GDP, around $500 billion, but it's projecting much higher growth, about 3.0%.
And that 1+ percentage point difference, it sounds small, but in terms of dynamism and consumer confidence, that's a huge gap.
It's a massive gap. But what's really interesting is that despite all that, both countries have very similar, very high purchasing power. Per capita incomes are somewhere between $47,000 and $53,000 US.
So the issue isn't whether people can afford a luxury saree. It's about how they're motivated to buy it and, how easy it is to even get the product into the country.
And that ease of entry brings us right to trade barriers. This is where the political legal environment just completely shapes the business model.
The difference is pretty stark, I imagine.
It's startling. For
Yeah.
Canada, a standard textile import gets hit with moderate tariffs. You're looking at typically 5 to 12%.
And while their logistics are great, 76% e-commerce penetration, that tax burden is real.
It's substantial. And the country is huge. Now, compare that to the SEPA advantage in the Gulf.
Go on.
The UAE is, it's just completely pro-business.
Yeah.
And thanks to that 2022 SEPA pie, textiles often get low or And this is the kicker, zero import barriers.
So let's put that in real terms. $1,000 saree. In Canada, you're paying $50 to $120 in tariffs right off the bat.
Which either kills your margin or you have to pass it on to the customer. In the UAE, under SEPA, that cost is just gone.
That zero tariff advantage is a game changer. It means you can either undercut competitors or, more likely, just absorb that saving as pure profit.
Exactly. And then you add the logistical advantage. The UAE is concentrated. You have luxury hubs like the Dubai Design District and world-class logistics through Jebel Ali Free Zone. It's just faster.
So, to sum it up, the UAE looks like the clear winner for early profit and efficiency. Canada is more of a long-term play for consumers who value the story.
And that word story is the perfect bridge, because the story has to be told in completely different ways in each market. This is where culture, using frameworks like Hofstede's, becomes your marketing Bible.
Okay, let's apply Hofstede's dimensions. Let's start with individualism.
Sure. Canada scores really high on individualism. So your marketing messages have to be about self-expression, uniqueness, how this saree makes you stand out.
It's about personal style.
It is. The UAE, though, is more moderate, more collectivist. Purchases there are often seen through the lens of group prestige, family, big events. The message isn't, this is unique to you. It's, this enhances your family's status.
And power distance. That dictates how accessible the brand should feel, right?
Absolutely. Canada is a low-power distance culture. So the branding can be more inclusive, more about empowering the artisan, the story of the people who made it.
Whereas the UAE is high power distance.
Very high, which demands strong, unapologetic luxury positioning.
Yeah.
The brand has to feel elite, exclusive, aspirational.
So if I'm trying to sell the exact same Paithani saree in Vancouver versus Dubai, how does my pitch actually change?
Well, the Canadian consumer is deeply concerned with ethics. The data on this is really compelling. Over 43% of Canadian luxury consumers actively look for brands with transparent, ethical production.
So the sale is driven by things like artisan empowerment and slow fashion.
For sure. It's a digital-first appeal. It's the story of the loom that sells the garment. You're buying a piece of social good.
And in Dubai.
In Dubai. You're buying status. You're buying cultural pride.
Yeah.
Purchases are tied to opulence, to events, major weddings, Eid, Diwali. So the appeal has to be this opulent physical presentation, high-touch personal service in a premium mall.
The core insight here is pretty clear. Both markets value the authenticity from that GI tag, but the reason for buying is just completely different.
Diametrically opposed. In Canada, Paithani sells as sustainable artistry. In the UAE, it sells as opulence and prestige.
And that difference has to dictate every single strategic choice you make, especially how you enter the market and, wow, the pricing.
It really does.
So let's talk strategy. With these conflicting needs, digital ethics versus high-touch status, what's the recommended way in?
You need a tailored dual strategy. For Canada, the recommendation is a low-risk, digital-first model. Think direct export plus e-commerce.
Which makes sense. It leverages their high e-commerce use and the huge geography without needing tons of physical stores.
Exactly. You can add some boutique collaborations for legitimacy, but it's an asset-light approach.
Okay, that covers the value-based consumer. What about the UAE, where luxury demands a physical presence?
For the UAE, you need a high-visibility, capital-intensive model. The recommendation is export, but coupled with a joint venture or a franchise partner.
You need that local expertise.
You absolutely need it to navigate the culture and to get you into a place like the Dubai Mall, which projects that essential image of exclusivity. You use the SEPA zero tariff advantage to help offset the high cost of rent.
Now let's get to the price difference. This is where you really see that strategy crystallize. How big is the gap for the very same product?
The pricing is aggressive. It really reflects that perceived value of status in the Gulf market. So a standard Paithani saree would be priced around, say, 800 to 1,200 Canadian dollars in Canada.
Okay. And in the UAE?
That same saree is positioned much higher. It would sell for 2,500 to 4,000 UAE dirhams.
Wait, hold on. 4,000 dirhams is about 1,400 Canadian dollars? That's a huge jump, maybe a 40% higher price on a standard item. How do you justify that?
That's a great question. The markup is justified by two things. First, that SEPA advantage lowers your cost, so the margin is just naturally wider. And second, the UAE consumer isn't just buying the cloth, they're paying for the whole experience. The prime retail location, the personal consultation, the aspirational status that comes with it, the exclusivity justifies the price.
And I assume that gap gets even wider for the high-end bridal edition.
It does. A top-tier bridal edition might go for 2,000 Canadian dollars or more in Canada. In the UAE, you're looking at over 6,000 dirhams.
Wow.
And that high premium pricing in the Gulf is really the engine that drives the financial viability of this whole dual launch.
Okay, so let's talk about the investment needed for this. What kind of money are we talking about, and how quickly can a venture like this expect to break even?
The initial investment projected is around 30 lakh Indian rupees, which is about 50,000 Canadian dollars.
And where does that money go?
It's deployed pretty strategically. Production capacity, quality control, and a big chunk goes to funding those two very different marketing campaigns. The ethical storytelling for Canada and the aspirational luxury presentation for the UAE.
So with that $50,000 investment, what do the revenue projections look like?
They're quite favorable, mostly because of those high margins in the UAE. That market is forecast to deliver much faster revenue growth, around 25% per year.
Compared to what in Canada?
Canada is projected at a more stable 15%. So by balancing the steady platform of Canada with the high profitability of the UAE, the whole venture is projected to break even pretty quickly by the end of year 2.
That is a fast recovery. The analysis must lean heavily on the UAE's ability to absorb those prices.
It does, but, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. Paithani has to learn from the Indian brands that have already figured this out.
Right, we have to look at the lessons from brands like Fabindia and Sabyasachi, and they could not be more different.
Not at all. Fabindia is the gold standard for that blend of artisan craft and ethical sourcing. Internationally, like in Toronto, they lean into sustainable messaging, fair trade.
But their Dubai stores feel more high-end.
They do. They maintain the heritage core, but elevate the boutique presentation. So Paithani has to adopt Fabindia's ethical messaging, especially for Canada.
And then there's Sabyasachi, which is just pure aspirational Indian couture, pure status.
And Sabyasachi shows Paithani how to create that crucial feeling of scarcity. You need a hybrid model here. Blend Fabindia's ethics with Sabyasachi's luxury execution.
So high-end visuals, limited edition releases.
Collaborations with regional designers, creating that sense of an event that justifies the high prices in the UAE.
It's about being accessible in your storytelling, but aspirational in how you present the product.
Precisely. Now, even with the best strategy, there are always risks. The analysis points to 3 critical ones that need to be managed.
Okay, let's start with the economic risk. Currency volatility. The rupee, the Canadian dollar, the dirham.
That's a huge one. It can just wipe out your margins. The mitigation is to use financial tools like forward contracts to lock in exchange rates and to diversify how you take payments.
What about market risk? I mean, the biggest challenge has to be low awareness among non-Indian buyers, especially in Canada.
That's where a dedicated digital education campaign comes in. Since Canada is a digital-first market, you focus on content, you work with ethical fashion influencers, and you hammer home that GI certification.
The GI tag is that non-verbal guarantee of quality.
It transcends cultural borders.
And finally, competition. You're going up against established players like Ritu Kumar or Sabyasachi who have massive brand equity.
Paithani's defense is its uniqueness. The strategy has to be to reinforce that GI certification as proof of true heritage, something mass luxury can't replicate, and to maintain a very strict limited edition strategy. Scarcity is its competitive moat.
We've covered a lot here. Everything from the zori threads of the sari to complex trade agreements. It's really remarkable how much depends on just how you frame the product's value.
It is. The core finding is that global market entry for a heritage product like this is not a one-size-fits-all plan. It demands a highly differentiated strategy. The product keeps its soul, that GI authenticity, but its marketing narrative has to be completely customized.
Sustainability for Canada, status for the UAE.
Exactly.
And in doing all this, Paithani is directly contributing to UN Sustainable Development Goal 12, responsible consumption and production. It's empowering artisans and promoting traceable, ethical luxury.
Which brings us to the final, I think, provocative question that this whole deep dive really surfaces.
Go for it.
If a traditional handmade textile can engineer faster profitability by adapting its message to pure status for one market, the UAE, while relying on ethical transparency in another, Canada, what does that tell you about the actual priorities of the global luxury consumer today?
Is it really about sustainability?
Or is it simply about owning the most exclusive and best told story, whatever that story happens to be?
That is definitely something for you to think about. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us.